Welcome to another introduction to Coaching Sports Zoom podcast. This is our 13th series, and today I'm honored to have two friends of mine from the Chicagoland area, Randy McFarland and Chris Chambliss. And before we get into the show, my name is Dr. Thomas E. Reed, and I am one of the co-authors of the book Introduction to Coaching Sports, in conjunction with Chad Earl and AC Earl. And I want to give a little background information, like I always do, about our guest. And then we will proceed with these questions that we have that we hope for our viewing audience will be golden nuggets that you can take from these men and their experience, not only as athletes, but also as professionals. Randy McFarland grew up in Maywood, Illinois. He played 2 years of community college basketball at the College of DuPage. His major was criminal justice. He was a JUCO All-American and was the N4C MVP, and that was the conference. One thing that all three of us have in connection is that we've been affiliated with the College of DuPage. So, he was the MVP, was a Highland Holiday All-Tournament team selection, I think maybe his sophomore year, and was also part of the all-region team, and currently is the founder and president of Best of Proviso Township organization, a 501c3 organization. Randy, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time to be a part of this.
Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Reed. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Okay. Next is Mr. Chris Chambliss. Chris Chambliss was also an outstanding 2-year player at the College of DuPage, on the N4C conference, All-Conference, was on several MVP tournament teams as well, was an outstanding mentor to many of those who came behind him at the College of DuPage. And now currently, Chris is also the CEO and founder of the Nehemiah Community Project 501c3 organization. Chris, thank you for being a part of this as well. All right, so now let's get into these questions. I sent you guys these questions, and you know, in the book, I talk a lot about character development and character traits, and being around both you men, you have definitely established that. And I know Chris, on a more personal level, particularly with your kids, how you've instilled good ethics and good morals. But for our viewing audience and for those student athletes and parents that will be viewing this podcast, Chris, you can start off by taking the first question. Based on your overall experience as a collegiate player, what character traits did you develop that has transcended into the person you are today?
Well, Dr. Reed, thank you so much again for having me on today on your podcast. And what I would say is what my takeaway from the collegiate level was something very simple. It was courage, it was integrity, and it was fortitude, right? It took courage every day to come to practice. And when it wasn't a good day, right? Maybe when my head wasn't in the game. Then took integrity to just stand on top and, you know, always do what was right when no one was looking, right? Maybe when the coach wasn't looking, still shooting those free throws, right? And making them count, right? Instead of skipping them. And so that kind of gave some fortitude, which kind of leaned into the whole courage piece. And so when you're running an operation, it's, you know, you need fortitude in times like this.
Right. Randy, what character traits did you get from, you know, your participation in basketball at the collegiate level?
For me, it's easy. Being calm in oneself, and also displaying a lot of resiliency. For me personally, before I even got to DuPage, I was dealing with a lot of academic issues, which is how I landed at DuPage in the first place. You know, so for me, majority of the JUCO players, we're a different breed. Things have never come.
Sometimes
So
that happens.
for me,
You froze a
fortitude,
little bit, Randy, but that's okay. Keep going.
okay. But for me, like fortitude, being resilient and believe in yourself despite any obstacles. So for me, being resilient and believing in myself is something that stuck with me it's with me to this very day.
You know, and those are some good responses because, you know, one of the things that I point out in the book is as student athletes in all sports, it's not just germane to basketball and all sports, is that through your process, you are going to have some character trait building models from your experience that hopefully you can take into your professional life. And if you're fortunate enough to play at a higher level, you'll be able to use those capabilities. You guys talked about fortitude. You talked about resiliency. We talked about focus. And we know that, you know, when the air comes out of the ball or you're no longer on the field, that these are characteristics that you have to have to be a good business person, to maintain a good job. And I'm really looking forward to that fourth question when you guys have an opportunity to talk a little bit about what you're doing professionally, because I just think it's outstanding. Randy, we'll start with you on the second question. What advice would you give coaches on becoming good character educators? You know, if you were talking to a room of young coaches who were thinking about getting into this profession at maybe the high school level, what advice would you give those coaches on becoming good character educators? And maybe you have some things that you experienced from Coach Kloss. I had Coach Kloss on. I know both of you guys played for Coach Don Kloss, Hall of Fame coach at the college, basketball coach at the College of DuPage. And it could be some, you know, necessarily just what about, you know, that experience would give you the opportunity to give advice to coaches about building good character becoming good character educators.
Well, for me personally, one thing, my experience with Coach Claus is I felt in deep in my soul, I had the abilities to perform on the basketball court. Unfortunately, during my high school years, the community I grew up in is like a basketball hotbed. It's so competitive. It's so competitive. It's very easy for you to get overlooked. So the coaches tend to once they favor a certain player, no matter how much you improve, they still will stick with that player that they've liked from the beginning. One thing that I experienced with Coach Claus is when I came to DuPage, I was at the bottom of the list. I came into DuPage, I had a badly sprained ankle that I thought was broken. I actually should have sat out my first year. And I really thought I was going to get cut. Thank God that Don Claus keep 19 players on the team, because he knew that by the end of Christmas, that he knew by the holidays that a lot of the players going to either be ineligible or quit. So it gave me time to work my way up the ladder. And I think the one game that for me is I came late to a practice game, and he put me in as soon as I got there. I felt as though he knew what he was going to cut me, since I might as well just let him play. And I had an incredible game and never looked back. So after that, I feel as though Don Claus put a lot of faith in me, and faith in me gave me even more confidence in myself. So I always say that I think we can insert confidence into your player, you're going to have a return residual on you that you won't even imagine. And I also think that coaches should consider implementing into a player to not be selfish. It's not all about you. Right. Think about your teammates. Be caring of your teammates. You know, care how they doing outside of the off the basketball court. Care how they doing inside the classroom. Care how they doing in their household. Do they have anything to eat? You know what I'm saying? So I think one way a coach can really do that is by taking your players and having your players volunteer in the community to show them that it's not about you, it's about the team.
Okay. And Chris, I know both you and I have had the privilege of playing together after our collegiate years, but in very, very competitive environments. And
Absolutely.
we've talked about this, you know, several times in our breakfast after playing
That's right. That's right.
experiences. You know, what advice would you give coaches on becoming good character educators?
Well, first, let me say this to all those that are out there. Do not underestimate Dr. Thomas Earl Reed on the basketball court. He was fierce, all right? And so the stories he tells you are true. So to answer that question, some of the advice I would give coaches that are out there now is what I would say are the 4 L's. Look, listen, lead, and learn, right? And I'm gonna tag in a little bit to what Randy was speaking on. Every player is an individual, right? Looking at that player, seeing how that player is, what makes that player tick. Listen to what they have to say, right? Because sometimes what they're not telling you is something that you may need to kind of help them grow and develop, and you as a coach can develop. Lead by example, right? Sometimes we may not say things like, hey, son, I love you, or hey, you know, whoever, I love you, those kind of things where they may not get that in their home, but show it through demonstration, right? Sometimes on the court and off the court. As Randy said, sometimes it may be a need for food, or maybe those are areas and ways of where love can be, or compassion can be extended. And then just learn through the whole experience, just learn what you saw, what you heard, and then how you're leading. And I think a successful way would be the 4 L's, what I call the look, listen, learn, and lead and learn.
Great. Okay. Chris, we're gonna start with you with this next question. I know we've had a lot of talks, and I know both you and Randy have been involved with student athletes, mentoring them. I would assume that even through what you guys are doing professionally, coming in contact with male and females who also may, you know, have played sports or are considering playing sports. What advice would you give student athletes who are considering attending a community college? You know, a lot of times when kids are coming out of high school, they think, you know, I'm going Division I, or I got to go play at a 4-year school. It doesn't matter with Division I, II, or III. And sometimes the community college experience is overlooked. But what advice would you give a student athlete who's considering attending a community college?
Yes, thank you for that. So what I think the advice I would give a student athlete is this: consider the junior college experience. For some, going away, let's say if they have the talent but not the grades, I think that's a great stepping stone to be able to kind of still be home but get that college experience. And it's also more economical. It's cheaper, right? And so oftentimes we don't think about that because we're thinking about our basketball career, but let's think about our future as well, right? So if there's student loans you got to get, well, you want to be mindful of those kind of things because you don't want to have debt going into your future, you know, because everyone doesn't make it into the league. But I would just say it's just a great step. It's a great opportunity to have development. I learned some of my best basketball at junior college, at the College of DuPage. I was in the best shape of my life in high school, but I was in the best mental shape in my junior college experience. So I would say the community college experience can be a wonderful experience if you embrace it and really kind of take it for what it is and grow in it.
Okay. All right, Randy?
Well, for me, the first thing you got to do to yourself before you go to JUCO is be humble. Before you go to any college, really, but definitely to JUCO, be humble, because you got to remember that there's thousands of other student athletes or student in the second student athletes across the JUCO. So you got to remember that, you know, like no matter what your reputation was in high school, it's a whole, you know how even in overtime, it's a whole new ball game. So JUCO is overtime. You got an opportunity to go on and strengthen your education. You have an opportunity to learn the game, because no matter how good, you still have a lot of learning to do in regard to the game of basketball. Coach Cross taught me some great fun basketball games that I didn't know, and there's good thoughts, but there's some techniques that he showed me and some offensive maneuvers that he showed me that I utilize for the rest of my career, even playing pickup ball. So humble yourselves, get into them books, lock in them books right away, and then make sure JUCO is for you to continue to. So humble yourself and do that.
Okay. And last question, guys. Both of you guys are doing outstanding jobs and have done outstanding jobs in your community. I applaud you for both organizations that you guys created and are CEOs now and are running those programs with the highest efficiency. So Randy, you can start off. Tell us a little bit tell our viewers what you're doing professionally with the organization that you started and was the founder of.
Okay. First, I'm retired. I worked for 28 years with Illinois Department of Correction.
Okay.
That career led me to meeting some of the guys I hadn't seen in years, who I played either high school basketball against or college basketball against, and unfortunately they were incarcerated. So that career led me to wanting to go back to my hometown of Maywood, Illinois, and to get involved with the youth, because I want to be on the front end of preventing youth from going into the system. I didn't want to be on a back end trying to help them merge them back into society. I wanted to be on the front end. So probably about 15 years ago, I went back to Proviso East, my alma mater, and I started an organization called Proviso East Young Men's Club. I rallied all the alumni to get involved with our mentor program for the young men. Every week we would meet like 40 to 50 young men at my old high school. Over about 5-6 years, that program built, and then my career changed somewhat, and it led me to a different schedule. So once I was able to readjust my schedule, I came back to the community again, and this time I linked up with my former teammate, Chris Chambliss. And together with Jessica Jackson, Noah Sykes, and Stoney Gillespie, all Maywoodians, we founded the Best of Proviso Township. And Best of Proviso Township is a student, family, resource and support and edutainment organization. Pretty much we get called upon to do pretty much everything in the community in regards to supporting the families, the students, and the school systems in our neighborhood. We've dealt with suicide prevention. We had about 3 suicides at my alma mater about 2 years ago. And after that, that led our organization to rally the community to be more preventative in regards to suicide prevention. We've dealt with violence, anti-violence. Currently, something that we have going on monthly, we have a once a month food distribution on the 3rd Saturday of the month in Maywood at this church called God Heritage. We was really called to boots on the ground last year during the pandemic. That's when we really got heavily involved with food distribution. We were distributing food probably about 5 times a week for about 3 months. That's when supply chain shortage in the community. So we boots on the ground. Chris, he's always been pretty decent with setting picks. He'll set the pick and then I roll and he'll dish the ball to the cup and I lay it right on in. We do it for the community. So me and Chris, it's amazing that we've been able to partner and I really feel saved some lives. In the last 2 years, we prevented at least 15 suicides from teenage students, just by recruiting other students to watch social media, having a good rapport with the local police department where we can Zoom to a kid's house. If a principal give us their address, kick the door in and stop them from doing whatever they thought about doing. So, I mean, it's a blessing to serve in God's capacity and to get back to the community I was born and raised in.
That's outstanding. That's great. Chris, you want to elaborate a little bit on that and what you're doing and with your
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for finally passing the ball, Randy. After all these years, I really appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. As you can tell, years later, we're still good at the game of passing and supporting one another in these efforts. Nowadays, I was formerly with a not-for-profit on the south side of Chicago. And now I am the founder and the CEO of the Nehemiah Community Project, which is based out of the Maywood area. and pretty much we provide emotional support, educational programming, and other equitable resources for men, youth, and families in underserved communities. And why do we choose to do this? Well, we kind of hang our hat on, and I'm a man of faith, and so we hang our hat on Nehemiah 2:17 and 18, where it really just talks about how to rebuild community, but it takes all of us, right? And so if it's not all of us, then it can't be one of us. And so that's the approach that my organization takes. And so we come from a basis of mental health to really kind of get into the head of folks that kind of help them kind of move forward in some of the traumas they may have been stuck in. So we have one program called TACT, which is trauma awareness capacity training. So we bring awareness to what trauma looks like, you know, how to overcome it, how to work through it, these type of things. And then we also have a men's group that we meet weekly virtually. And we just had a retreat here back in September that is called Endgame. So it's EN-game, which means to empower, game, try something new. So we're empowering men to try something new, come into safe spaces, and to be able to kind of talk and deal with things that ail them on a daily basis, even in their homes, on their jobs, things of that nature. And so we've been seeing good results in that area, and doing that full time as of July 2021. And also my wife and I opened up a cake boutique during the pandemic. So there are resources out there available, and there is resiliency during this time. And so we're doing really well. And she's a award-winning cake artist. She's been featured on the Food Network. Sorry, Doc, shameless plug, but I'm really proud to be able to have that.
Yeah, and then I know Denise it was proud that you are putting that out there.
Yes,
that is not a problem.
Yes, and so it's Sweet Nieces. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, for our viewing audience, you can see through the introduction to coaching sports that this participation, and I apologize because I forgot that you guys actually did play together. What happens when you have the opportunity, and we're talking obviously about a team sports, some of these things can also, some of these characteristics and some of these traits and some of these model building, the experience that you have could also come from, you know, not being in a single sport as well, but you know, you can see the connection here with how these two men have had an opportunity to take their experience from being in sports participation, what they've learned, the character that developed them, and now what they're doing in their community. And that's what participation in sports does for you. You know, it brings you connection, and obviously, you know, from their responses, you can see how they've taken that experience from competing competitively in college and transcending that into what they're doing professionally. I'd like to thank both of you men for your time. It's great seeing you guys. And I am planning on being in Chicago here shortly, so I'll get in contact with you. Maybe we can get together and I can buy you guys lunch. Chris and Randy, I'll get you guys that schedule, and we'll definitely connect and hook up. Introduction to Coaching Sports is available on Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, ReaderHouse.com, iTunes. So for those of you who are viewing the show and you want to get the book, it's a good read. And again, thank you guys for taking the time out, and we'll be talking with you guys real soon.
Dr. Reed, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.